Okay, this is telling us we're live, so we'll wait for Leah's green light.
Still waiting. Doing that more for the check. Check, check, check. All right, we're good to go.
All right. Good evening. Today is Monday, February 16th, 2026. This is a Personnel, Finance, and Auxiliary Services Committee meeting of the School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education. There is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any item on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school's YouTube page. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit our School District of Menominee Falls YouTube site. We are located at the Village Hall Upper Level Conference Room, 3344 and 3345, located at W156 and 8480 Pilgrim Road in Menominee Falls. And I would like to call this meeting to order at 5:46 p.m. Was this meeting properly posted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I am looking for a motion to approve minutes from the January 6th committee meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes. First item for discussion tonight is the capital improvement project, CIP plan.
All right, so we have some visitors, some guests, special guests joining us tonight. So Sarah, do you want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Sarah Quinones. I'm the Director of Custodial Operations.
Joel Weber, Director of Maintenance Operations.
So together, this is a collaborative effort. We're going to go through our CIP document. So CIP is our capital improvement projects plan. And this document started, we had it internally for many, many years. It became a public-facing document when we voted to approve our Fund 46 a couple years ago, and with that we needed to have an official 10-year capital improvement plan. So that's what this document started as, and now it's become a robust document that has grown over the years to accurately reflect all of our needs in terms of our capital improvement projects. So on it, there's we range from roofs to HVAC needs to playgrounds to parking lots and everything in between. So I will first pull up, we're first going to go through 25-26 and what was complete, and then we'll go looking forward as well. So this document that is up on the screen is our 10-year CIP plan. Again, it's attached on board docs for all to see. The green represents items that are complete or prioritized for the future. So Sarah and Joel, do you want to discuss the 26-27? Oh, I said we'll start with the prior year. So start with the 25-26, the roofing that was complete, and the amount we spent and what we did in 25-26.
See that from here. So I'll stand up.
We've got the Ben Franklin High School roofing.
Yep.
And then the kitchen, securing the kitchen.
Yep, we did. Yep. Ben Franklin High School roofing for $1.32 million. The kitchen, the security that was put in a automated gate so we can prevent students and staff entering it after hours after they've cleaned the kitchen to make it more sanitary for them.
So we spent over $1 million on roofs, and as we were, kind of like reflecting on this, we thought what was impactful was, I've heard Joel say a number of times, like, the dollars aren't going as far as they used to, and we used to get so much farther with a $675,000 CIP budget in terms of roofs. Like, we used to be able to do a roof section plus some. So as we were having these conversations, I was like, can we quantify this and show, like, what does this visually look like? So we have roof maps, and these documents, the roof maps that we're gonna reference, if you look on the CIP document on the far right, you're gonna see some links. These also exist on the online version, and these links reference roof surveys and just additional information that we have. So we will go through the maps, and the maps originated from these roof surveys, and they reflect the the different sections. So when we talk about a roof section, it truly is a section of the building. So we'll start with the Ben Franklin map, and what you'll see in green, this is Ben Franklin's roof sections. What's in green is what was complete in the 25-26 year, in the 25-26 amount. So between Ben Franklin and the next one I'll click on is the high school. Unfortunately, with that $1 million, we completed a small portion of each of those buildings is essentially what we're looking at here. So, and then the pink that's shaded is coming soon. Those are needs coming soon in terms of roofing needs. So we've got the high school and Ben Franklin. So if you look at the green, between the two of those roofs, that was over $1 million. So then to kind of the same point, we're like, could we look at, just because I'm curious, how much more are we spending on roofs as just one item than we were years ago, which led us to the next document that's also attached and in your packet as well, is the cost comparison, just for reference. So Sarah actually was able to pull invoices and look, we started with a 2017 Valley View roof section. And that total square footage is listed there, the cost. And we calculated then the cost per square foot at $6.60 for that 2017 roof section. And then we looked at a section at the Ben Franklin roof that we just updated and the high school. And again, compared to 2017, it was $6.60. 2025, we're at $22.53 for one of those and $19.24 for another. So that was kind of my light bulb moment of like, holy cow, this is the real, these are the numbers behind what I keep hearing. You know, Joel talk about is it used to go so much farther. A dollar used to do so much more of a roof when we spent $675 on it, which is our annual budget for capital improvement projects. And this is where I really got, it clicked for me to say, holy smokes, this really is 3 to 4 times more per for cost purposes than it was even less than a decade ago.
Yeah, when I stopped in on the meeting that the three of them were working on, this really jumps out at you and is a great document to show like inflation and what inflation is in our CIP. So it's that's what we spent. It's not theoretical, it's actual.
Do these get bid out each
Yes.
year when we do this? Yes.
It's a competitive bid, multiple different companies doing it, so.
Do you like a minimum set of bids, like 3 or?
We usually do minimum of 3, but depends on, we'll send it out to up to 6 contractors. And whoever wants to bid it will bid it.
Okay, so that leads us to, we'll move forward now into the CIP plan. So green on the CIP
Can I ask
document.
one question?
Absolutely.
The $60,000 for the Ben Franklin kitchen,
Yeah.
was that money spent from the lunch money?
So actually it was prorated, it was split between Fund 10, Fund 50, and Fund 80. So we did a whole analysis of the amount of time the lunchroom is used, or I should say the cafeteria is used, and then we were able to prorate it accordingly. So this whole 60,000 was the total, I believe. And then that is split out between Fund 10, Fund 50, and Fund 80. With, if I'm recalling correctly, Fund 50 and Fund 80 taking the majority of those, of that cost. So the whole cost of the 60,000 was not in Fund 10.
Okay.
A smaller portion of it was.
So we used what we could out of the.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, super.
That's a great question. And that's why we did it, because, we used the buckets as responsibly as we could to the auditor's standards. Okay, so moving into then 26, 27. So prior years, green means completed, and then 26, 27 and forward, green is what we are proposing for our budget. And then yellow is kind of secondary priorities. So 26, 27, we've got $140,000 as our CIP budget, down from our 675, and that is in an effort to balance. So we're essentially pausing our CIP plan right now with just the elevator in there, and then secondarily, we've also currently studying the drive-ups at Riverside and Valley View. So prioritizing safety there, and we are looking as we study those for various options. So we're working with a civil engineer, who's very connected to Menominee Falls, and looking to see, is there an option that we could utilize the existing land that we have? Basically, like, what's the low cost option and what's the option where we might be adding driveways or changing routes or like even hardscaping over a green space right now. So we don't have dollar amounts in there yet, that's why that's blank, because we're currently studying it. Do you wanna discuss the elevator and the needs there?
We kind of started with the need is that we've always had kind of a issue with that acting up. When grandparents, they really said it, that it had to be put ahead because we were actually, the elevator was shutting down as we were trying to shuttle grandparents up and down using the elevator. So we actually had a full-time custodian in there operating the elevator for grandparents. So,
So that's a need and not a want,
Yeah.
which is why it's being prioritized right now.
And there's a single elevator in Valley View, right?
Yeah.
Single elevator.
yeah, so, I mean, it became unfortunately a no-brainer that that's a top priority. Last thing I wanna do is have a child get stuck in there
Right.
or even an adult.
So beyond 26-27,
What is
we-
the, when you say modernization, what are we looking at? Is this like really like a new elevator or is this sort of like
Everything
repairing
except for the
elevator?
hoistway, basically, and that's the piston that runs it up and down. It'll be a new car, new, control room, for the pump and all that stuff.
So that's what a new elevator
Yeah,
is.
so and it's gonna be very similar to, we've done North and Riverside the last 2 years, so very similar to that style again. Actually, it's gonna be pretty much identical to Riverside,
Mhm.
same company won the bid this time as well.
which we just completed.
And what I've been hearing the facilities team say for years is that our elevators are so old that we can't even get parts for them anymore, so it's kind of this risk that we've been taking for not updating them, that once it goes down at some point, it's just gonna be down for good once there's no longer parts available. So moving beyond 26-27, and the list, you'll notice is like, we just keep scrolling, it's a long list. Our needs.
Did the list, obviously like previous years, you're just showing what we completed and everything else got punted
down.
forward and that's kind of how we got here, or were things intentionally punted to the 26-27 some years ago for?
No,
Some other reason.
things keep getting
Okay.
reprioritized and just moved down as project dollars are
Yep,
available.
that makes sense.
So what's the biggest need we have at the time?
Sure.
It's, a lot of times it comes to us mid-school year, is, oh, this is the problem, look, this is what summer's gonna be.
We have a monthly operations meeting, which all four of us sit in on, along with other staff, and this has come up recently where, all right, look at your CIP, everybody has access to it, what needs to be where and why, and, get to Caitlin with the why and the details so that we can prioritize this. Before we had a Fund 46, this sort of prioritization wasn't necessary to be public. Now it's required by law because of that fund, which will be active in 2.5 years, 2.5 more years. So once it's active, we'll have a lot more opportunities that aren't legally available yet to save.
Can I ask Larry, last question on the elevator? Obviously, like, it's the only elevator and it's a very multi-level school. Is it, I guess, given all the other things on that list, and I don't know if there's like ADA compliance issues there, and I'm sure that plays into it as well, but I guess can you just give like a 2-minute, like, prioritize this elevator versus,
Yeah,
Any other
we need a
thing,
working
combination of
elevator
things?
and we do have a student with mobility issues, so, and the building is multi-level.
Yep.
So, like Joel said, it actually went down on Grandparents' Day and, facilities kind of maneuvered and pivoted and had somebody working that elevator for grandparents who needed to use it. So, we need a working elevator and we always, as we go through this list and I meet with Sarah and Joel often throughout the year, it's, like I think you even said on Friday when we were talking, like there's not a leaking roof right now that we're needing to deal with. So it's like looking at this need versus all the other needs. For example, like North Middle School ADA doors and then district-wide card readers, those are nice to haves, but they're not needs right now, they're wants. unfortunately, I hate to even say that, ADA doors are a want and not a need. But that's the case. You know, it's not a code violation right now, but
And if you go down the list, Ben Franklin elevator is not that far down. So, I mean, that's something that obviously is gonna be prioritized. And they take opportunities when they do elevators to asbestos abate, you know, if that's an
Most of
issue.
those will be pretty good, cause most of our elevators would have been installed in 95, 96, 97 era. So we're full out of that asbestos aspect of it. Sugar Lane and Valley View both got theirs about 95, 96, and they're part of additions onto the building in some ways.
Some of the placeholders have been there for my 3 years, so, replace asphalt in the football stadium parking lot. I mean,
I mean, my prioritization of the whole list comes is anything that's gonna prevent us from having school. That will always come to the top. The last thing I wanna do is have a school shut down because we didn't do something that we should have.
For safety or something.
yeah, elevators and roofs are gonna come to the top generally. You know, I mean, it's because it has to do with, you know, is there water coming in and when is a roof at its natural end? You know, when we were on top, I think a couple of us were on top of the north roof when they took off the piece on top of the auditorium. And that didn't have long left. You know, I mean, if you see right through. So, I mean, it's good that we replaced it. We use that auditorium all the time.
Do all of our buildings have flat roofs too?
Yes,
And I suppose that adds to the challenge, longevity of a roof.
Yeah.
Everything's sitting on it, not sloping out.
Yep.
so between elevators and roofs, those are, I mean, you'll see going forward, that's our priority is 27, 28. Right now, we're looking at BF roofing sections that would be needed, but again, we're revisiting, like, just because it says 27, 28 right now, doesn't mean it's absolutely going to happen. As we get closer, make sure that's still the priority. So, and we work with a company called IRS Interstate Roofing Services, is that
I
the
believe so.
I? It's not the IRS that we think of when we say IRS. Yeah, they don't specialize in roofs. But we'll look at a roofing, like our roofing schedule from them, which is linked in the CIP document as well. So they'll do a roof survey that says, here's the estimated lifespan of the roof and when roof replacements are needed. And then it's like, we're not just using that as the Bible, we'll come back and make sure, no, that roof actually does have a few years left, and then we reprioritize it. So truly things are end of life when we're getting to them.
Yeah, I gotta drive through the work order system of what roofs are we going to a lot. So if I see a roof that we have multiple leaks over and over and over, that one's gonna obviously come to the top of the list because we're spending a ton of money just to keep it going or keeping it dry in the building.
Right.
So for the 26-27 budget, to accomplish everything on the CIP list, $7.8 million. Reading that correctly?
In a
You're reading
perfect
that
world.
correctly.
In perfect world, yeah.
And again, you're just gonna keep pushing it down year after year, you know,
Right.
everything's gonna keep.
And-
And then when roofs are priority, things like parking lots and that aren't
Then they get pushed down
necessarily that,
further,
right,
but yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, right now, this is our best, you know, just with all of their expertise, which is substantial. You know, this is our best look at what the plan looks with prioritization, but we're open to changing it anytime. Meaning if there's a need or
Yeah, like I said, it's a living document and it changes monthly. Something that might be further down, now all of a sudden, hey, this has become more of a problem, we gotta move it up.
Right.
just like what happened, I think it was 2 years ago and a bit, when the HVAC system at the middle school went down. That was 1.2 million-ish.
I mean, and
It was prioritized, it was on the list, but it clearly wasn't at the top, but at some point, it went right to the top when we just needed to do it.
Anything else you wanna point out as we go through this?
And when they replace these sections of the roof, what's the life expectancy?
25 years.
25 years?
it used to be, rubber used to be cheaper to do, and now it built up in rubber at the same price.
Yeah.
Virtually the same price, I mean, there's not really taking shortcuts on anything right nowadays.
You know, for those that live around north, I mean, we had a couple of years of work on that roof, a couple of summers.
Yeah, and even, you look what we did, and the money we put there and the amount of roof work we did, there's still a lot left,
At North?
yes.
We hit the big stuff. We hit the highest need areas.
Well, and the unfortunate thing is when you go through referendum on a lot of stuff, it all comes due at the same time. So you put all that money into it, but it all comes due roughly around the same time. And unfortunately, you don't have the money to keep up with what the needs are.
Especially when it's costing 3 times, almost 4 times.
Right.
Yeah, that one page is a great page about.
I know, I was like, I keep hearing it, I'm like, I gotta see it, I gotta see it for myself.
I know.
And Sarah pulled those invoices and I was like, holy, like, that was my light bulb moment, I was like, it really is going on.
Yeah, it's amazing to see.
Yeah, I happened to come in when they were working on that document.
Yeah.
And I'm like, make sure you use that document at this meeting. All right.
Donations? Any other questions from board members on CIP?
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Well, thank you.
thank you both.
Have a good night.
You're welcome to stay, but you're doing very well home to your family.
It's really fun. All right, next topic for discussion is gifts to the school district.
Alrighty, so this is an annual item, so this is regarding 24-25. I do wanna make a note to just push this up, there's no reason we need to wait this long, but it's just, we've always reported it in February, so. So 24-25 gifts to the district mainly is our Fund 21 account, which is our student activity fund, so I think gifts to the district is a little bit misleading because it's not all simply donations. Majority of it is student-led initiatives or hosting of events and fundraisers. So you can see, it's a 15-page report. It's also linked on board docs. I'm not gonna go through line by line, but just some high-level items here is our total, which is on the very last page, is just over $1 million, which is almost about 25% higher than the prior year. So we had a lot of activity, which is really awesome. This is kudos to our student groups, and then of course, all of the family and friends in the community supporting who are donating to the student group. So there's always fundraisers going on. Our booster clubs are awesome partners for us. So just a couple key items. There was a dance invite that brought in over $41,000. So we know that dance is a key player in our high school operations, and our community really shows out for our dance team. Softball batting cages, we had donations for both the softball batting cages and baseball batting cages. So the district now has those at Trinary, and then at the high school, which is kind of like next to Ben Franklin, at that back parking lot. A football fundraiser brought in $14,000, boys swim $18,000. So a smattering across all sports. Of course, there's also activities, so there's FBLA, Trading Post, this is where their ins and outs are, meaning their revenue and expenses are going through Fund 21. So just a lot of really awesome activity at our high school mainly, high school levels, also middle school levels that are represented in this report. So again, not all just like community donations, but fundraisers and a lot of work from our students, and then our community supporting our students through that way, so.
And then for like the fundraisers, let's say, football team raises $1,400, that stays for the football program,
Absolutely.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not like the baseball can borrow, hey, I need some
Right.
money for this, okay, so it sticks with the program.
Yep, so we have, so if you'll take a look at the report, the account number starts with 21R, and then you'll see the very last 3 digits. There's a unique 3 digits with each group, that's how we're tracking the groups. So, baseball has its own, softball has its own, girls swim, boys swim, football, etc. So yep, it stays within that group. Oh, I will point out too, on page 2, there's the very top of the second page, there was a line called WISE data validation. So essentially that's just an account number that the state now is having us use a different account number, so you'll see both an in and an out, meaning a positive and negative, so that just was an account number change that we had to do, so not actually a donation there.
Questions from the board? Alright. Good, thank you for this and thank you for all those that donated and contributed to all the fundraisers and stuff, but thank you.
Yep.
Alright, next item for discussion, our facility sponsorship program update.
Okay, so we have our first official sponsor. This is exciting because it's so much work, so to have our first one where we use our, our contract, like we went through our flow chart of our process when somebody reached out, so it was just really exciting. We've also, so Waukesha State Bank is our first official sponsor through our program, and then previously we had donations from Woodman, so they're up on our scoreboard as well. So this is in the Burgundy Gym at the high school, and we look forward to many other ones. We do have linked on board docs is also our one pager, so this is so that should be going out in the next community ed and rec activity guide to get the word out, so that's kind of going to be the next big push. We also had a lot of wallet sized flyers, if you want to call it, with the QR code on there, so Mr. D'Amato has those, Mr. Helverson has those as they meet with people, and then we have some, like our team has made images with the QR code that can be put on programs, basketball programs, theater programs, anything like that. So we're starting to get the word out. I'll say it's been a little bit of a slow start just because it's a new program. We have people that we actually were in a meeting with today. So I'm looking forward to having more community partners in this at all ranges. So it starts at $500 and goes all the way up to our naming rights, which is $25,000 a year for 10 years. So I think we have something for everybody. in this program, so.
Yeah, I know meeting today is not public yet because we're still negotiating, but it's very promising. And it's probably gonna be a sizable donation, well, likely, so. But good work on Caitlin's part. I know Mr. Halverson sat in that meeting as well
Mr. D'Amato.
with Mr. Brown, that's right.
Further questions from the board?
I just wanna comment that this is directly linked to the strategic plan. I mean, this came out of that living document that we started, where were we at with this, how do we develop alternate streams of money, so that's just to recognize that we're kind of, it's a living strategic plan that we're definitely starting to roll with this part of it.
Alright, the next item on the agenda here is the 26-27 budget planning calendar.
Okay, so this is another annual item. Not much changes from year to year here. Everything is very cyclical. You'll notice, like, if you look at last year's to this year's, the dates themselves change, obviously, the day of the week. But otherwise, everything is very much in the same order. So we go through our spring where we're planning our enrollment projections and our staffing projections and our budget projections, which are all tied together. Our team works very closely with the HR team throughout the next many months as we go through our budget planning process. We have non-renewal notices that are due to staff. We have in spring then, at our first board meeting in April is when the final staffing plan will be approved. So between now and then, we'll review this a number of times at this committee meeting and our full board meeting. Contracts go out and are due, final contracts for staff for teachers are issued by May 15th. They generally happen before that, but by May 15th, and then are due back a month later by June 15th. We continue through our work through summer, and then that leads us up to our annual meeting and budget hearing, which is September 14th, 2026. So the first board meeting in September, Labor Day is late this year. So that's why that September 14th date is, seems maybe a little bit late. The Labor Day this year is pretty late. And then we
like every year, have our final budget factors in October that we learn from the state, and then the final budget is not approved until the end of October. So again, cyclical from year to year, not much changes except for the actual dates that are listed there.
Questions from the board?
Can I just ask, why do they do everything in a biennium?
Like at the state level,
Yeah,
because that's how they've always done it.
okay,
I don't know how that originated.
Okay.
I will say it's the year that we are, like, the year in between the biennium is very helpful because we know our budget factors, we already know them, but
Okay.
in the year, you know, where they're planning the state budget, we're very much in unknown territory. One of the big unknown factors is the per pupil increase, so now that it's in statute for 400 years, we know that's $325, but that can change at any time too. So, I will say it's helpful that it's not just 1 year at a time, because otherwise we'd be playing this waiting game every year. And swing from, you know, different budget assumptions as we make them while we're waiting on the state can really swing a budget.
Like we saw happen this year, there were
Absolutely.
changes after the annual meeting, which is unheard of. And in that instance, it was in the first year of a biennium.
Mhm.
So going into the second year of the biennium, we're already factoring in the changes that, all of those changes that we're aware of. That's factored into our projections.
in what part of the year do they start a biennium? Like, is it January
July.
2020? Okay, July,
Yeah.
okay.
So we actually start spending money on a budget that's not approved until October. So July 1, we're spending on a budget that hasn't been, but everybody does that.
Right.
You have your preliminary budgets and you come along, then you come to the annual meeting, which is the start of it, but then the actual board will finalize things in October. And in that process, you're actually spending money on a projected budget, which isn't finalized until we're, 4 months into the actual spending. But it is the same process for every public school.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the annual meeting that's in,
September.
yeah, right, that's in 2026 though.
Yep.
Is already set, like
We've-
there,
we've
in
already-
theory, there should be no surprises, like
Yes, in theory, there
upcoming.
should be no surprises.
There's, yeah,
Like the
there's,
in between.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the middle of the biennium,
Yeah.
that's not like that, but,
Yeah.
okay,
so usually when they haven't set a 2-year yet, there's negotiations.
yeah,
This one settled relatively early for them.
Okay.
And it was negotiated, it's just that some of the things changed after October,
Right.
which is what was problematic this year.
right.
So the crazy thing was that the state budget that was set, and it, like Mr. Munoz just said, it was set a little bit early. So the state is supposed to set it before July 1st, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So and then we are just playing the waiting game, like we're literally, like, you know, now, and July 1st is our start of our fiscal year, so we're just in this purgatory of hoping our assumptions are conservative enough, you know?
Yeah.
And so this year, meaning summer of '25, the state set the biennial budget and said for special ed 42% and 45% for the corresponding years. And then, so it approved the budget, and then after Thanksgiving, said our amounts aren't actually high enough for that. So that's where we have now the 35% is what the state said we should be planning for the current year. So we
Yeah.
count on the state budget,
And the personal property aid wasn't revenue.
right? Which we didn't know, like that, in the summer planning process, we didn't know that, so.
So we're hopeful that at the next annual meeting, it'll be like, okay, we know how things are because we're in the middle of the biennium. And then we panic.
Yes, we are hopeful that we know,
At the end of the
but
biennium.
what we learned this year is the big unknown is special ed reimbursement rate. So
Right.
while the state says this is included in the budget, and we've known this always, it's
Yeah.
included in the budget and then it's underfunded, but it was majorly underfunded this year compared to historical, so that's always a factor, and then we use our consultants at Baird, who they're forecasting for the state as well, so they put us in a good spot of here's where you should be, you know, planning, we're talking with our colleagues around the area as well and around the state of what special ed rate we should be using. So big, the giants like Baird, they can project, here's what's the allocation at the state level, and here's what we're seeing, like they're seeing all school districts' data, and here's where we're thinking it's gonna flesh out in terms of percent, so I'm not doing all this math by myself in a vacuum, like I'm relying on the experts in the field as well, so.
We have to trust them too.
Yeah, and that's but that was an area that we learned this year is, even if it's in the state budget, can still throw a curveball.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
Substantial purpose.
So the 35% reimbursement that we get this year for special ed, is that just for the 25-26 school year?
Yes.
And does that mean the 26-27 could be more than 35%?
Yes.
We are hopeful it's
We're hopeful.
45%.
And the state,
but we're budgeting for 35.
right now we're budgeting for 38 based on recommendation from Baird.
Okay.
And the math that they've done with the state allocation at that bucket at the state level is significantly higher for 26-27. So we have a projection right now of 38%, but the state budget is 45, so the difference between 38 and 45 is still that's still conservative.
Oh, yeah.
That's our biggest variable.
Yes, that is our biggest variable.
Where does that piece of money come from? Like, right, cause taxes in Wisconsin have not gone down. So theoretically, the state of Wisconsin has more money than they did last year, but they still found that they had a shortfall this year. So we're like, obviously, like they're,
So special ed and equalization aid are two of the larger buckets in the state budget. So it comes from, I don't know how the state budget works, but it comes from all the variables and all the taxes that are coming into the state and all the different ways that the state's getting revenue, and then they're allocating their budget. And the line items for schools, for public schools, meaning state equalization aid and special ed are two of the larger items in the state budget.
We're hopeful for more than 38.
So is it, so kind of off of what Jennifer said, like, is it more like they could allocate more in theory if there's a surplus of money, but they have set like a line?
they're a big surplus of money.
They could,
They could,
the state could.
they could go
Like
as high as
their
40.
line item is like, this is what we're willing to do.
They could go as high as 45, according to the budget,
Yeah, so they budgeted at 45%.
right?
The budget,
Yeah.
what's included in the budget is the 45%, and then they correspondingly have an allocation, a bucket, if you will,
Yeah.
for those funds. So
So the
would
bucket and the budget don't match.
well, the bucket is
Most of the time.
somebody at the state level is doing the math as to how much we should put in the bucket. And it needs to increase each year because so do expenses.
Correct.
And all school districts are submitting their Fund 27, their special education expenses. So not only are costs going up, but more and more students are being identified with special needs and needing services.
Yep.
So we can't just keep the budget the same, the bucket the same, and salaries increase and students have more and more needs. So there has to be like that double compounding increase to the bucket that's what didn't happen this year, that enough money wasn't allocated because of all those things, like the state didn't account for all of those factors when they allocated in their line item in the state budget.
That's right on.
So is it like the budget people and the bucket people don't talk to each other?
I cannot speak to that. I wish I could, I don't have enough information
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I just am more like,
I don't,
Can you speak to this, was it some certain and some?
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
sure can.
Some sufficient, yeah.
Some sufficient means the bucket is sufficient. Some certain means the sum is certain, not the percentage being certain. So what's included in the state budget right now is a sum certain. They're saying, here's the dollar amount and hope it's enough, and then it's not.
It's not,
If the state budget changed to a sum sufficient model,
then they go by percentage.
then they go by percentage, which means their dollar amount would have to be flexible.
Okay.
So if they move to that model and they say in the state budget 45%, and then their allocation, was a little bit under, they'd have to fund it up to 45%. which would benefit all public school districts
Yeah,
in the state of
we're all for that. That would,
For some sufficient.
Some sufficient,
But this-
meaning the sum would be sufficient
Right,
to support the percentage.
And I think that 15% of the surplus could make every school district in the
oh, 100%.
state be.
I mean, that surplus is what, 2.5 billion, I think I last read.
yeah, I was looking at some of the news out of Madison last night and they were talking about rebate checks. Rebate checks came
I
out
think I've seen that too,
Rebate checks came out $1,000 for,
family, 500 for
Married and-
individuals.
and when you hear property tax relief, it's usually like, okay, what do you mean by that? Cause there's a lot of ways to get property tax relief. So, be cautious with those words. Not that we don't want, I mean, everybody wants, lower property taxes, but
And that 2.5 billion, I mean, that's above and beyond like emergency fund and all that stuff, is my understanding, is that correct?
That's my
at
understanding.
the state level,
Yeah,
they have surplus.
so it's true surplus, not just, well, we're gonna say this for emergency fund, because they have their emergency fund and all that stuff too.
They have billions. Billions. Yeah, they do.
So I think it's also important to, when we say special education funding went down, really, the services that need to be paid for are going to be paid for.
Yes.
What really gets affected is everything else.
Yes, so
We cover the difference.
we
Yeah,
cover the
out of our
price.
So-
Fund 10, right?
If it's 42 or 45 or whatever the number of the state is, whatever the difference is for services, we're covering everything else,
Right.
which of course we're gonna do.
Yeah.
But because we're covering everything else out of Fund 10, that's less money
For other stuff.
for everything else, for
Like for
gross,
capital improvement.
for
yeah.
capital improvement or salaries or everything else like that.
So,
It's same bucket of money, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. An increase to special ed funding benefits all students. That's another way I would say it.
Right.
Because
and
then we don't have to take as much out of the
Right.
10 fund to balance that.
Correct.
And we're legally obligated to pay for services that are in the IEP, which is what's in Fund 27.
Right, which, as we should.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So that's the budget planning. Really good questions on how this, the state budget is impacting our budget.
Yeah, thank you for staying on top of that, it's it's a lot to take in, so thank you. Any other questions from the board? Alright, we'll move on to our next topic, 26-27 preliminary budget assumptions and forecast projections.
All right, this is our last item in open session for tonight. So 26-27 prelim budget, I'm gonna go through key challenges, which is not the first time this team or the board or the community has heard, because Mr. Munoz has said this a number of times at board meetings. And then go into some of the assumptions, the key assumptions that are within our budget. So for 26-27, some key challenges. As we talked about just now, the state special education, let me actually pull this up too so that it's available. And this item will be put into public by tomorrow morning. The state special education reimbursement rate is far from what's included in the state budget. The state is now saying rather than 42% for the current year, special ed reimbursement rate, districts are likely to receive 35%. So we've talked through that a number of times. And then in conjunction with the next item is how we essentially got to the scaled down scope for phase 1 of district office relocation. The next item here is the state removed the personal property as revenue, which for the school district of Menominee Falls was nearly $800,000. So the total of those two factors is almost $1.5 million in reduced revenue for the current fiscal year 25-26. And again, it's a result of those two factors that the project for district office relocation was changed to a phased project, essentially providing budget relief for 26-27 as needed by not tying those dollars to the district office project at this time. The state per pupil revenue limit increases are not keeping up with inflation. Districts are receiving $325 per pupil increase, which is modest. It's the 17th consecutive year though that per pupil increases are below the rate of inflation. So prior to 2010, increases were tied to inflation, and then those two factors became decoupled, no longer corresponded to each other. And if
we were still tied to inflation, our increases are still tied to inflation, right now we would have $12 million more annually in annual revenue, not just one time, but annual revenue if increases were still tied to inflation. So
Yeah, that
that's-
third bullet is critical.
big dollars. Then, additionally, the state did not offset the per pupil increase with an increase in the general school equalization aid allocation. And I do wanna say, like, we use different words all the time, so you might hear general aid, or you might hear school aid, or equalization aid. We're referring generally, whenever I hear those words, I believe people are meaning synonymously that it's equalization aid. So rather than offsetting the increase, $325 per pupil, with an increase in the bucket, the aid allocation of the state was kept flat, which is unprecedented. So that could be, another way to say that is that increase, the $325 increase was just transferred to property taxpayers rather than any aid to support that.
Yeah, that's points 1, 2, bullet points 1, 2, and 4 are the ones that I've been discussing with staff as I go around all the buildings. I have one building to go, along with the fact that we're projecting balance for the 26-27. So points 1, 2, and 4 are the big points, because that's essentially the financial gap. But the other information and all the other bullet points, they're critical information, but they're bigger, longer term deals, like 17th consecutive year of under inflationary expenses, declining resident membership, other things that in terms of open enrollment that we'll get to in a second. But this is essentially talking points, and staff have called me back in for smaller group conversations, including today at the high school, where I had a great conversation on the second floor with one particular teacher who wanted to talk in more depth, but it was right on these points.
So like last year, for example, how did they offset the per pupil
yes.
increase?
So the bucket at the state level, I need a better word, the allocation at the state level increase, and has every year since revenue limits have been existing, increases every year corresponding to the per pupil increase. So that allocation number has never, ever, since revenue limits existed,
It's a
been
critical
the
point.
same from one year to the next. I'm just gonna say, the state's playing politics because
Right.
the 325 year per pupil increase was a line item veto. It was creative, I'll say, and so I think the other side of that piece is, well,
They were mad
schools, you
about
can
that.
have that, we're just not gonna increase the total equalization aid bucket.
And that's unprecedented. It's an important point that these three unprecedented things that occurred this year after, we haven't seen this before. The way that Caitlin just articulated that is critical. When somebody in Madison says property tax relief and $325 additional dollars per pupil, that is very much like putting that into property tax relief. Meaning, yes, it's per pupil increase on one side of the formula, but because for the first time ever, they didn't backfill that on the other side,
It shifts the liability to local.
Yes.
Yes.
So as
Yes.
a state average,
Yes.
the average tax levy for school districts went up 8%, which is also unprecedented. So that's a huge increase. Ours stayed roughly flat due to a number of factors, having to do with our building project and our aid and such. But that won't always be the case. Like soon we're gonna be, if nothing changes at the state, we're gonna be in the same boat as everybody else in terms of an increasing tax levy because the state's not backfilling the per pupil increases via the state equalization aid bucket.
And that's the maximum amount that we can tax.
So the good decisions the board has
Yes.
made in the short term, meaning defeasance and then the Fund 80 project, and how that money fell, put us in a situation where we didn't have those increases like everybody else. But those sorts of things now are in,
Yeah. Like it's tricky.
we can't build another
Right.
community center and add on to Riverside. So that was a unique situation and we took advantage of it from the standpoint of defeasing and saving the taxpayers $3.3 million over 10 years while prepaying debt. you can only pull those levers so many times in so many years.
Right.
Okay, another piece of our puzzle is that we are in declining resident membership, which means we get less revenue, and 82% of districts are in this boat, which is a significant number. In just 2015, that was 50-some% of districts, so about 10 years earlier, and it was significantly fewer districts were in this boat of declining resident membership. And those words are like a little jumble-y, resident membership, but that is the factor that's in our revenue limit formula. So those are the number of students, school-age students who live in our district, that's who we get to count.
And that's based on a 3-year average.
3-year average, yes. I'm not gonna go into the details, but there are graphs on page 3 of what resident membership is and then our history of it. So I'm just note that it's in this packet. But what you'll see in the 3-year average, the second graph, is that the 3-year average has really been benefiting us over a number of years, and in the current year, 25-26, you'll see a slight drop. And while it is slight, it is a drop, and that as soon as you're in that boat or you're experiencing that, that's when revenue just is not keeping up with expenses like it even was prior.
And the actual school funding formula doesn't, the best way to explain it is it doesn't reward the 82% of districts that are in declining enrollment. It's not set up empirically to reward districts that are in declining enrollment. It's only 18% of districts in the entire state are benefiting from the antiquated school funding formula.
Which makes sense because your expenses essentially grow, but then your income decreases as your enrollments decrease.
And we always are prudent with, I said it when we were going through our budget calendar, that we are projecting enrollment, and then our staffing is, corresponds with our enrollment projections, but school districts cannot feasibly scale back as quickly as revenue is decreased once you're in declining resident membership. So, we're always looking to make sure that we're aligning our class sizes with what's board approved, but you might get, let's say a 50 student drop, but if it's over 12 grades, you can't actually reduce a single section.
Correct.
Unless it happens to be, condensed or at the first grade level or something like that, so that's just an example.
That's right.
Okay, so moving on. The final point on the first page then is our open enrollment pattern, which we've talked at length about, and I have a note, sub-note under there, is that we actually now have 21 new seats. So, but in the preliminary projections, which was before the new seats, the net cost, meaning the open enrollment outs exceeding the ins, was a net cost of approximately $560,000. So that's a new cost to us. The dollars follow the students, so the more outs you have, the more you have an expense versus the revenue. So all of this to say that our preliminary budget outlook, as we initiated our budget conversation in December, was a deficit of 3.2 million. And we can say that as of now, we are looking at a balanced budget. We will present a balanced budget with the reduction items and such as we move forward in the spring. We have a number of, and I'll go to those on the next page. I'll start with assumptions and then go into some of those opportunities that we are using to balance for 26-27. I say assumptions because we don't know everything as we're at this stage in the budget process. I'm gonna get to this page on here. So I kind of liken it to a weather forecast, and I saw a really nice graphic one time that I have to find in a presentation, but the farther we are away from, the snow event, the more gray the snow totals are. So we're not certain yet, and so as we move forward and get closer and closer to budget time, meaning summer, and we know factors from the state, our assumptions and our predictions are more and more accurate, just like the snow forecast, and we're getting closer and closer to the snow event, and we know the actual snow totals. So what's assumed in the budget that essentially started our projections here at 3.2 million are a 38% special ed reimbursement rate. Again, the state budget is 45, so that is a huge difference for us between 38 and 45, a difference of $580,000, significant. We are assuming in here an 8% increase for health insurance as of 1/1/27. A 12% transportation increase, 5% electricity increase. We are assuming school, department, and division budgets are flat. We are assuming our substitute budget is flat. We assumed initially our open enrollment outs were flat at 145 students and our ins reduced to 94. That was the net expense we talked about on the first page, which now is different and updated because of our 21 new open enrollment seats. And then we are assuming right now still that retiree payments are flat. We will know for certain and can calculate the actual dollar amount after the February 28th retirement notice deadline. Okay, so with all that said, our opportunities to balance for 26-27. Over the next few months, the district will present line item reductions resulting in a balanced budget for 26-27.
We are excited about that.
We are. Which is, I mean, a $3 million deficit budget is challenging to balance, so, but the levers that we have, which we are pulling, we started with our first discussion item tonight was capital improvement projects. We have $675,000 annually budgeted for capital improvement projects, and we are pausing everything except the need right now, which is the Valley View elevator, the greatest need that we have. So, that's resulting in a savings of over $500,000 right there. We're filling 21 new regular ed open enrollment seats, so right now we're in the open enrollment window period. We're getting applications, we have over 100 applications for students that are interested in coming in. That window closes at the end of April, and then we go through a random lottery process. We'll be accounting for new hire and retiree budget reductions, so as people are retiring, or if we learn that people are leaving our school districts, we are able to budget for essentially the difference within there. So last year was the first year that we utilized those dollars and actually pre-accounted for them in our budgeting process. It takes a lot of coordination between our business and HR teams, but it worked out I'd say incredibly well last year that we were able to count on those dollars and then use them to address our compression issues, the start of our compression issues, so.
Put about $250,000 additional dollars into fix compression issues after July 1. And that affected staff by the first day of school. So they saw changes to that work from the board by the first day of school. A portion of the staff.
And then we are looking at school and department budget reductions as an initial opportunity to balance 26-27. A few other items to note: retirements are due at the end of February for the teacher employee group. So we will then our goal is to utilize retirements and attrition to move forward through the budget and staffing process in 26-27. So of course that's the path of least resistance. That's the most pain-free path is when people are leaving, then we take a look at that position and say, okay, is that needed? Whether that's retirement or that's, okay, somebody's found another opportunity outside of our district, and we'll take a look at all of those options. So finally, the budget, in order to balance, we have available to us the $1.5 million to provide budget relief that came from the district office relocation project becoming a phased project. So the scope reduction of that project was $1.5 million. So we can, up to board's discretion, utilize those dollars in order to balance 26-27. Moving into the future, and this is a lot of words, we're gonna see a lot of numbers in future meetings, but right now we're high level because it's February, and as we move through the spring, we'll bring budget projections in terms of real numbers forward, not just paragraphs of words, but going forward, due to the key challenges outlined earlier, resulting from decisions at the state level that are affecting not just the school district of Menominee Falls, but all Wisconsin school districts. The school district of Menominee Falls is projecting multi-million-dollar budget shortfalls over the next 5 years. So those key challenges that we started the meeting with, those are the reasons why we're seeing those challenges moving forward. and we'll provide details as we move throughout the spring.
Can I ask why you only say for 5 years? The next 5 years?
Because that's how far my budget model goes.
And we use Baird,
Definitely.
Yeah. Maybe should say that, so.
yeah, the Baird forecasting model is a specific
Okay.
model that we utilize. Not all district utilizes it, but we believe that it's the industry standard, is our belief.
Yes. And I mean, if you go out farther, the farther you go out, the more just assumptions you have built on assumptions,
Right.
and then you have multiple state budgets within there where so much can change, so even the 5th year of that, it's like, man, I wanna have draft written all over that because there's so many things built in there that are just our best guess at the moment.
Just like the CIP, there's $1 million for a parking lot, out the football stadium student parking lot. We've patched it, it's on there as $1 million placeholder, but by no means is that a priority, in the near term. But it is on the list, so when you look at a CIP list, it's similar to a longer term budget. I mean, these are our best ideas based on, but a roof may last longer. Like the HVAC system lasted much longer than what we thought, and we kept pushing it back. It was at 23 years, I thought.
It was over, are you talking about North Middle School?
Yeah, the HVAC.
I just know it was over its useful life,
It was
I don't know.
beyond the projected end of life,
yes.
and so it didn't owe us anything. Best way to put it.
The goal basically is do anything possible to balance the next year's budget. This
26,
year's, yes, 26-27 budget. Punt everything, capital improvement down the road and hope for something major to change at the state level. Just get through this biennium because this biennium budget is not going to help us and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, we're projecting balance for the 26-27, which is good. But what we're doing
But with
with that,
reductions,
what we're doing with that short level good news is we're starting to really plan. We have ideas for the 27-28 already. We're already working on the 27-28. We're aware of it, we're aware of the projections. And starting to work on that now in terms of recurring savings is really the way to hit that. The one-time money we put in there, it was the right move. And obviously the board agreed, everybody voted yes, I recommended it, but really the goal is to find recurring savings over time as much as we can. Because that's gonna build up that long-term, that's how to hit that long-term number, wherever those numbers hit. And that's, we're already starting to project to do that. HR and business, we meet weekly, we're looking at that and saying, okay, feel pretty we're very confident about the 26-27. Let's start working this staffing year. Since we're confident about the 26-27, let's think way ahead about the 27-28, given we're more solid with our budget factors.
can you, don't wanna get too far in the future, but I guess just like is there like an example of, I guess, a significant like recurring savings?
I would say retirements, so we have, Leah would know the numbers, she can't be here tonight.
Yeah.
I wanna say it was around 40 teachers that we have that are eligible within our 3-year early retirement window, meaning we just finished year 1 of it, so we have the end of this year and then the end of next year. So we'll know, at the end of February, we'll know who's planning to retire and take the district up on that essentially early retirement incentive, that little that $5,000 sweetener. And then essentially the remaining amount of people would be the 27-28 savings projected roughly. So we do know that when people retire, we have 2 opportunities. We have the opportunity to look at their position to say, do we need this moving forward? And can make staffing adjustments without, the nicest way possible, where we're not having to actually, not give somebody a contract back. And then the second piece of that is if those positions are refilled, that generally they're filled at a lower salary.
Does that get into long-term issues then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we have, like, when we talk
It's like
about,
this
yes, when we talk
cat
about
and mouse
our, accounting for new hire retiree budget adjustments, we have this year and we have next year to have new savings, and then that's just our new going forward, like, we're not gonna have that
Yeah,
line item moving forward
okay,
as a savings, so yes.
great. Keep thinking about that, I guess.
And these are common, in the state of Wisconsin. I sent it to the board. Actually, all four of you received it, all the articles at the bottom. Just the number of articles that I receive on a daily basis. I just gave you one day's worth of everything going on in the state as it relates to these factors. But that's what's going on from Green Bay to, Hudson and every place that's, it's the same issue. And that's why I did it, not as a scary thing, just as one day in the Wisconsin State Education News, and here are the articles, click the link and including my son's district.
And is it fair to say, like, because it's been 17 years of these consecutive not matching inflation, it's kind of like these, like, almost like micro cuts have been made over, and now we're getting to the point of, like, we can't, like, micro cut anymore, if that makes sense. Because we're to the point of, like, we're looking at, like, big decisions, things that affect wide scale.
But 26, 27, we're projecting balance.
Yes.
We're already starting to work on the 27, 28 this year. So that's the strength of our short-term good position, is that we can start making decisions for the 27, 28 that will help us when we get beyond, which is what we're doing.
Alright, any other questions from the board? Alright, at this time, I'm gonna entertain a motion to convene into closed session under Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 subsection 1 subsection C to discuss employment and compensation.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Alright, so we can convene into closed session.
6:52.